Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience today as we worked through some technical internet connectivity issues. Thank you for joining us for our final event of our Open Classroom series for the winter 2021 term. My name is Allison Hurrier, and I am the head of the Textile Art program at Portland State University. In the School of Art and Design. For those of you who are joining us from outside of the university today, the Textile Art curriculum is an elective track in the BFA program that provides an interdisciplinary approach to the study of clothing and textiles. We offer courses in weaving, surface design, sewn construction, and dress history that encourage students to develop portfolios for a variety of applications in apparel, costume, textiles, and contemporary art. We will be starting this Open Classroom series again in the spring term, and we hope that you can join us on Wednesday, April 17th for our next event for the Words and Thread workshop with Francesca Capone. For more information about these events and course offerings, please visit our website, and I will post that information in the chat. Before we begin today, I would like to acknowledge that we are joining you all from Portland State University, which is located near the heart of downtown Portland, Oregon in Multnomah County. We honor the indigenous people whose traditional and ancestral homelands we stand on, the Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Watlala bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kayapua, and many other indigenous nations of the Columbia River. It is important to acknowledge the ancestors of this place and to recognize that we are here because of the sacrifices forced upon them. In remembering these communities, we honor their legacy, their lives, and their descendants. Today, we are so thrilled to have Kat Karnaky with us. Kat is a textile designer based in Oakland, California, whose quirky and original work can be found on fashion and home textiles. Since the beginning of her career 16 years ago, she worked for small independent designers as well as for large companies like Anthropologie, Urban Outfitter, Pottery Barn, Williams-Sonoma Home, Sears, Athleta, and for Old Navy. Kat received her BA in textile design at California College of the Arts in Oakland, California, and her MS in textile design at Philadelphia University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She was also an apprentice and print fellow at the Fabric Workshop and Museum in Philadelphia. Also facilitating today's discussion is the fabulous Alicia Decker, who is, we're very fortunate to have teaching surface design with us this term. We will have a designated Q&A session, so please feel free to type your comments into the chat as we go. And also feel free to tell us who you are and where you're coming from or beaming in today. It's always great to kind of know who's on the other side of the screen. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you for your patience as we got started. And Alicia and Kat, I will let you all take it away from here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alicia. I don't really have much to say. I'm just going to let Kat kind of have the floor. I just wanted to thank you all again for being here and let you enjoy the presentation. So I'll turn it over to Kat.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. And I'm so sorry about how late it happened. I'm currently in a rural situation. And so right now it's a little hairy with the internet. So apologize for that. But thank you so much for joining, and really excited to talk a little bit about myself and my journey I've had in my life in textiles. I started off at California College of the Arts. It used to be CCAC, which is right here, and I went to school there originally for ceramics, and then as ceramics, through ceramics, I found textiles. So I used to work on, I used to do this kitty culture project that I'd been working on for 10 years. I started in high school, and it was really, if you guys know about Henry Darger, it's kind of based, it wasn't, I mean, Henry Darger wasn't around by then, but it was, you know, these cats with multiple things that they were wars, and there was good cats and bad cats and evil people and stuff. So I worked on this series for a long time, and just had a whole Bible of like everything that happened with these cats and stuff, and their mysticism. It's a lot to go through, so I won't talk to you about all of it, but it was a great series that I worked on. So I did that. These are also some of my drawings I did. These were the evil people, and they were shapes of ghosts, but really when you saw them, they turned into whatever you feared the most. So if you're scared of like, you know, shots or whatever, they became that, and that was the big fear. So I represented them as ghosts. And then after I graduated from school, I started an apprentice program at Fabric Workshop and Museum in Philadelphia. If you guys don't know about it, it's the best program ever. It's a 3-month apprentice program where you work to create your own fabrics, but you also work with the artists as well. The Fabric Workshop brings in some of the most amazing artists. They do 2-year residencies, and then you're there to facilitate their projects. So some people will do yardage, other people will do big 3-dimensional pieces. So I worked with Leonardo Drew, Kara Walker, Robert Venturi, and we would print, and we were all in different stages of the work that they were. Some were just starting and we were like trying to figure out what they wanted to do. Other people decided that they were just finishing. I worked on this project with Leonardo Drew, and he found trash on the ground, and then we would paper mache it, and then we'd cut it out and then leave just the skin of the article. And then he built these like kind of like trash piles out of it. And he really kind of made people look at trash a little differently because they were all so monochrome and beautiful. You know, it's like with rabbit skin glue, and it was a really great program. I was able to work there for 3 months, and then I came back as a mentor, and I taught people also how to silkscreen. This is the old building that used to be in, and we had this 8th and 9th floor, and we had these tables that were huge. They were 4 tables, they were 50 yards long. So you could just produce as much fabric as you wanted to there. These are all the apprentices that I worked with. Some of them were graduate, and some were just out of college. We also had a high school program too. On the back, you can see all of the beautiful textiles that they created. You would do a 3-yard piece, black and white, and then also one in color. And this is us silk screening. So the screens were 30 by 50 yards long, wide. And so you have to pass the squeegee back and forth. And this was me and Rachel doing some of my fabric, which was shrimp, lobsters actually. So, you know, you can see we're just like printing. If anyone's printed before, you print every other so that the screen does not hit the print again to make it messy. But I would just buy all this cheap fabric from Jomar, and then we would just print, just like stay up all night and print. And here we are cleaning the screens and washing them out. And just, you can see how beautiful this facility was. I mean, I learned how to silk screen at school. But this was very technical and very, you were able to do prints in a way, like if I came back and said 10 years later, you want to print that print, I could do it because we had the notes all written down. And you can see they would do these like beautiful prints in here, all the apprentices. And on the side, on the left, you can see the big like tables that we would use. And just like on the left also, that was Dehosa. That was one of his art projects we were working on, where we were knitting with fishing wire. He was making these bodies. So it's like, it was very entertaining. You were like working with the artists, working with the apprentice coordinators, working with all the high school apprentices as well. On the left right there is Christina Roberts, who is a master printer there. And this is our exposure table. And, you know, we also would reclaim and then also restretch the fabric of the screens as well. So you really learned a lot about how to do these things. This is us working on the Mylars. You know, we would hand draw everything. And then this is some of the stuff that me and Kate did. We would do parties too. So we would be there and we painted, this was dresses that I made with my friend, Kate. Virgil Marty had a show, and I made these like crazy dresses out of paper, and we wore them to serve drinks. So this is some of the fabric that I created as well. This was, you know, because we had these large tables, I was able to create some of these things. This was my fabric with, I used spray paint and spray painted on the Mylar, and then separated them out, each one, and made these like bags that I love. And just, you could do anything. And this was another print I did. It was swans, and I printed on a silk organdy. Cotton organdy. And made these really pretty swans. You can see up close a little bit. I printed it also on like canvas as well. And then this is some of the birds that I did as well. So I would work all day with them, and then at night, when it was 5 o'clock, I would go put some toast in the toaster oven and eat it, and just like keep printing. And we'd print as long as we could until we got kicked out. And so just some more fabric I did. This was part of my kitty culture that I did too. So I made these like huge panels. I think my repeat was I think it was 60 by 60 inch repeat. And then Christina helped me work out the way to make those the stars kind of do different things. So it didn't look like a repeat. My whole thing was make a repeat without looking like a repeat. It was really fun. All done with pigment. And I just, that on the right, the pink was on flannel. So just really having fun with that. Here's an up close of it, and just did it in multiple colorways and just had fun. I made bags out of them as well. Love those, had a fun time. And then here's my lobster as well that I did with on canvas. And here's that bag. After I finished, because the apprenticeship program was only 3 months at a time, I would go back and forth between Philly and California, and I worked for Catherine Bacon, and I worked under Susan Avila, who but we would work for Catherine Bacon, who was this really cool fashion designer in Novato, California, and she made these really beautiful multi-layered, like used a lot of silk and velvet, and we would print all these things by hand in our studio in Emeryville. So I would help assist these beautiful gowns, and they were sold at Bergdorf Goodman. Like Oprah Winfrey wore them. They were definitely art pieces in themselves, and very like spiritual Buddha. Like it was fun to see like what she came up with all the time. And these, like velvet burnout, and like I'd sit there and we'd print all this fabric because she was doing small runs. So it was probably like, I don't know, maybe 100 yards, maybe even 50. Like it wasn't crazy production, but it really kind of honed in how to recreate fabrics when you had to recreate them. And then I also worked for, when I was back in the day, I had 8 jobs. So I was working on lots of artists as well. So Deanna Gibbons was this hat maker that I used to work for, and I still love her, and we work together still on like little side projects, but I learned hat making from her, so I incorporate that kind of in my work. But she's amazing, and I learned all these fine stitching techniques and how to do things, and I made this bird hat that took like 2 years to create, but I hand beaded the whole thing. She helped me figure out the whole hat, and so we have a good time. CARI BORJA is another artist that I worked for. She is based in Oakland, and so we would make clothes together, more small runs and stuff, but it kind of like kept teaching me more and more how to like hone my craft. I had gone to, after I'd come back from Philadelphia, I also went to, I got my AA degree at College of Alameda, where I learned fashion design. So I kind of like textiles and fashion all kind of merged together. I went to Philly U and got my graduate degree because I figured I needed to learn how to use the computer. I didn't know how to do that back in the day, and they hadn't taught me that. So I went to Philly U and started making crazy prints out of, now I could use, things I scanned in. So this is all my jewelry. I scanned it in and then like drew in all the white snakes. And this was called Snakes on Some Chain, because it was back in the time when Snakes on a Plane was out. So I thought white snake would be like grosser, and it just, I don't know, it was just a fun print. So that was my scan in print. And then I made like parakeets as well. I still like to hand draw everything as well. And I scan in now. It's a little easier because I can scan it in and manipulate it. But this is all my grad school work that I did. I worked with shadows as well. And like they were really focused at that school to go outside and hand paint everything. So we were trying to paint in the middle of snow, flowers, it's insane. But, my birds as well. And then this was all based off of candy that I'd found. This was all candy and fake flowers from the dollar store. So this was kind of fun, like dorky stuff that I like to do, have fun, shadows and plants I really liked. And then this was also based off of some, I just like color and like birds as well. And then we went to Italy to go check out some of the factories out there and see how they run. And so this was all based off of our Italy trip and like all our funny things that we had, like the experiences we had where, you know, we saw that bird and we saw that. And like we played this game called Afterburner Climax. And it was just rando things, but it was like definitely a fun experience to be in Italy and see how things were going. This was part of our flowers that we had to draw. So I can draw very tightly. I prefer to draw a little bit more loose, but this was kind of nice. This is also some girls that I like doing with watercolor. And then while I was in grad school, I was able to intern at anthropology, and it was really great because I had never been in corporate, always was like corporate scared about that, but it was really a great opportunity and I learned a lot. So I got to, these are all prints that I did for them. I jumped in all the departments. I mostly stayed in prints. I was always in fashion, but I did knits and intimates. So a lot of these were, you know, pants for pajamas, and these were all hand drawn by me. So I would look at for inspiration and then kind of like draw my own. This was my lobster dress. So actually they saw my lobsters that I did for the fabric workshop and they were like, oh, let's use them. So they made a dress out of it, which I thought was pretty funny. Lobster dress. This was another print I did that had owls on it for pajamas. And this one I was really proud of because this was a star print that I did for pajamas. So this was on fleece. And it was all of the zodiacs. And so it was fun to research all these things and kind of like come up with these prints myself. No one gave me direction on this, so this was kind of nice. Usually while you're in corporate, you have a certain theme and colors and all these things that kind of come along with it. And with this one, my boss wasn't there, my boss's boss wasn't there, and I got to go into the concept room and kind of really like focus in on it and I was able to kind of like come up with this print. And I did it in like 2 hours and everyone was like, this is great. And I was like, oh my God, it's like miracle print. This was some of our, we did engineered prints a lot. So engineered meaning that the bottom was the bottom of the leg and the top was, you know, more clouds. So we did a lot of engineered prints to make them look very special. They still had to be in repeat so you can see the repeat in there, but it's just a different way of doing repeats as well. This was based off of the circus theme that we were doing at Anthro at the time. And so it was like always playful, fun. That's why I liked working for them, is that they, their aesthetic was kind of like more in tune with me. It was fun. And this one, this was part of their 52 conversations. So they went back into the archives and brought out prints that people had done back in the day when they started. And my two prints are the watermelon and the lemon. And the lemon print is actually the first print I ever did by hand at Anthro. And really proud that they brought that back, because I was like, oh my God. It was like such a moment for me as a designer to have something of your own on other people's body. And like, I don't know, it's just, so it's kind of cool. They put it on everything. There's another one we did. This was for top that you could wear to bed, but you know, at Anthropology that you could use, you could do like 12 screens, and screens meaning every color. So every color is a cost. So I was able to do, I think this was a 12 screen print, which is insane. But they were able to do that. And the silver in there was actually, it was a pigment. So it had a little shine to it, which was kind of fun. And this was our little wolves we did. It was so cute. And then this is me and my husband back in the day. And I made this whole outfit for my anniversary. It was 10 years of me dating him. And so I decided to make an anniversary dress, and I found a vintage dress. And I hand painted it all cats on there. And I hand painted the shoes, and I made the little the hat. as well. And I came into work, I was so excited I'd done this. And then I showed Anthropology and they're like, oh my God, let's make a dress out of it. So we scanned it in and they made a dress out of it. But the coolest thing about it is that somebody used it for their own wedding. And I thought that was just like the coolest thing in the world, that here I am making an anniversary dress, and here's somebody now using that as their wedding dress. And it had my 2 cats on it that I've had forever. So it was kind of like this very odd thing, but I just think it's so cool that she used that. I don't know who it is or anything. I tried to find out more information, but it's just like, to me, it's just like, oh, that's so sweet. And this was another print I did for them, which was a t-shirt. And on the right is that was my label for it. So it was kind of cool. We were able to put in, my name and a little like saying in it. I don't know. It's just things like that made Anthropology so special back in the day. It was like nice to have my names on it as well. And this was a babushka that we did for pants for pajamas. And that was for holidays. So it was just like, I don't know, it's fun. I had a good time. And this is also just to give you guys an idea of like an engineered print. This was a parrot that I had done back in grad school. They really liked it. And then we made an engineered print out of it. So when we sent it to the mill, this is what they knew how to print, place, and cut and sew the garment. So it was kind of cool. It's like my grad school work was able to be put into this, their collection. So it was really honor for me. This is another sailboats that I did, made with colored pencils. And then I worked at Anthropology I eventually had gotten a full-time job while I was at Anthropology, and I worked there for a total of 5 years. I also, when I left because I started this company called Anona, and in the industry, you sell your prints to, you can sell prints to industry, so like, or vintage. So for us, we sold vintage and exclusive prints that we created. So sometimes they would give us concept ideas and say, hey, we're doing this, this, and this. Will you make prints? Or sometimes they would also do, other things that were more, we would just bring in things and they'd be inspired with us. So I started with 2 other girls at Anthropology that I worked with, and we sold to like Kate Spade, Ralph Lauren, Anna Sui. Like it was really cool. It's still going, and these are just some of the prints that we would show them as well, just kind of like fun. This was sold to Kate Spade, and just had a really good time making these prints. It was a good time. I eventually stopped doing it because I went to, we moved back from Philadelphia to California, and my husband went to school out here. So I stopped doing that, and I got a job at Pottery Barn. I originally started at Pottery Barn Teen, and I was there for about 3 months. And then I got into Pottery Barn Maine, which was completely different, because here we are now. I was in fashion for many years. I love fashion. And now we're doing plates and like bedding. And it's like, a lot of people think that, I agree, but home business is kind of like the best place to be, because the product never changes. It's a sheet is a sheet, a plate is a plate, the body, the scales and stuff don't change. Whereas in Anthropology, someone would make a skirt that was long, and then all of a sudden they'd be like, let's cut it. And you're like, oh, now it's going to mess up the print. So it's like, there's these things that don't ever, don't make sense sometimes, but in home, it's pretty easy. A sheet will always be a sheet. So here I am at Pottery Barn, a completely different idea of like what I do, very beige, and very home, but I tried it, and I made these cool, like Christmas, Halloween plates. And I made, they would do things like this. Like this was a print I made with a flamingo, and they turned it into a cool tote. So it was like, they came with a tote, and it came with the little tote, and then this and that. So it was kind of fun to make like these quirky things. I eventually moved to Williams-Sonoma Home, which if anyone knows about that, that's like the more upscale brand that they work on. And we would do these fancy plates. So these, I didn't draw these, but what I did is I cobbled them together from vintage postcards and like clip books, and kind of, I made the borders, but we made this whole set of for Easter, and it was really cool to see that. This was another one I did, which was a mug for Christmas. And then these are my Halloween mugs that we did. So you'd always do like a set, you know, so it could come by. And this is kind of how we'd lay it out for the factory to see how it was printed. And you would cut these out and kind of put it on an existing mug and see if it made sense where the placement was and this and that. But it was really cool. So it was like, I got to hand draw all this stuff and then made mugs. So who knew? This was another idea of cherry plates I did. I didn't hand draw it, but what I did is I took pieces of artwork and I scanned it in and I kind of like cobbled it together to make these plates. And you know, it's like if you think of a plate, my boss told me, as a crop, and the crop has to look good, then you're kind of like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So to me, it was like super cool. I liked learning this a different way. This was some napkins and table runners that we did, and we would do these really cool, like this one was based off a quilt, so like an 18 or 1700s quilt where it had like everybody's name in the town, so it was like Tracy blah blah blah, and it all had the same thing, but we wanted it to be more based off of Valentine's Day. So these were all things that were like cute Valentine's Day ideas, like baby doll, true love, like cute sayings that you could put on. And I still use these napkins. This was mugs that we would do as well. So these were all just like, each one of these was a different icon for a mug for Christmas. And so they were scanned in normally, and then I would like distress some paper and then scan it in and then put the distress on top of the mug, and that would kind of make it look a little bit older instead of so flat. I think flat wouldn't have looked as good. So that was kind of fun, based off of like, you know, Dutch, Germanic kind of like Christmases. And this was a bedding sheet we did on flannel for Pottery Barn, Maine, and it was based off of like skiing and that kind of that thing. Oh, not that. After that, I quit that job and started working for Sears. Now, you might not think Sears exists. It might not still. I'm not sure. But I worked for Sears for a hot second. When I got there, 3 months after, I think maybe a month after I got there, they declared bankruptcy. So I was like, ugh. But it still was a great job, and I was able to have it for a year. So I worked on the Joe Boxer brand, which was kind of fun. And I was able to make these like just weirdo things that were like teenager and like fun, jokey stuff. Also, like this was something I hand drew in watercolor and then color separated it out. So, and then made this print. This was another thing for Joe Boxer. So tongue-in-cheek, kind of just jokey stuff, but good times. This one was I worked for Roebuck in Row, which was their denim company, and they would do t-shirts that would go with the denim pants. And so we made all these funny like love kind of things. It was still a good job. I'm glad I did it, and it made me go back to fashion, which I really love fashion. Then I started working for ATHLETA after that, and I've been freelance. I started freelancing for them, and never done athletic wear. I would say I'm 50-50 athletic. I like to do things, but it definitely it was a learning thing. So I made this print, which was based off of like what's it called? Just like shapes and stuff. And then this was a camo I made. Camos, I never thought I could do a camo, but actually I made this camo and I was really proud of it. It was with a washy texture all over it, and they sold it in these 2 colors. So I was like really happy. That just came out. I mostly worked on swim while I was there. So we created this like this engineered print with a kind of texture on it. and this one that came with it. And it's starting to come out now because it's been a year, but this one, the Tiger Lily, this one was tiny, tiny, like micro cheetahs that I worked on too. And now I'm in Old Navy. I do socks and underwear, and for boys, and nothing's out, so I can't show you, but it's been nice to have like a little non-accessories, non-apparel stuff, because it's just getting more wide range. Also, to go backwards is, while I was at Pottery Barn in Williams-Sonoma, I started my own brand with my sister. So my sister and I, my sister is a tailor and a fashion designer in LA. So my sister and I have always worked here and there together, but we decided to start a full-on brand with my sister, and we called it Miss KK Sister. And KK was the name that I'm Kat Karnaky, and my sister's Christine Karnaky, and I have a sister named Karen. So we all kind of started this brand together, and I hand printed everything, and then my sister would make the garments. So, this is our first collection. It was all discharge on, I ended up dyeing the fabric. Then I would print it with discharge. Discharge is basically bleach. So it was like the bleach takes off the color, and you can see she made like capes, and she made a whole collection of like, I don't know, like 8 or 10 pieces. The buttons were all Bakelite, going all the way to the bottom. And then one on the left was a star print that we did. And I would print 20 yards at a time. I have a table at my house, or not my house, my studio at the time, and it was 10 yards. So I'd print 20 yards of fabric and do that, and then send it to her, and she'd make the garments. And it was really fun. It was a good time with that. And this was second collection, which was called Sneaky Snake, which was all based off of snakes and patterns and stuff. So I would hand draw the snakes, cobble them together, put them in, repeat. But this was on silk, and I used Procyon dyes. So that was fun to have that. We also made scarves, and I had a secondary print, which was the eyes and the tears that went with the snakes. And the snake scarf was on cotton, and everything else was silk. And here you can see the jumper that we made in silk, and it's fun. And then our other collection, I guess I have a problem with snakes. I love them, but we made this other print with snakes, and we made these pretty dresses with well, and then we did it in 4 different colorways. So you could get that colorway, the pink colorway, and there was this one, the kind of peachy colors. And this was, to me, just an exploration in color. It was like the same print, but then different colors. And, it was just so much fun to get all the dyes and kind of like test them and stuff. Here's the purple one. You can see my sister put lots of details into these dresses. Here's my table. So it's 10 yards, and here was kind of how it looks. It's just, a print. I love it. I'm so happy to have a table and be able to print. Same thing, I print with a 30 by 50 screen, 2 people to print back and forth, pass it back and forth with. So it's nice to have a table. It took me years to actually able to set up a studio. Here is us in our bag, not me, but here's the bags that we made also with the models. And here you can see the bags being printed. So they were engineered, printed, so that when you cut them out, they were really easy to just kind of like put together and stuff. But we had the straps and this and that, and it was a good time with those bags. Those were printed with pigment though, because it was just like on heavy canvas, and I can, but when you have to steam set everything, and it was just going to be a little harder to steam set something that was so bulky. And then we did a collaboration with Hood London, which is a really cool hat company based out of England. And she does these little hats called the BB. And then we made 2 different scarves that went with them. She does a collaboration with everybody every couple of months. And so that was the discharge snakes that we did. And then on the other side was the little, the more colorful ones. And then you could get it in a natural straw or a black straw. So it was really fun. I love her. She's super awesome. And here are my tests. So I always test everything before I produce it, just because, you know, I'm dealing with dyes, and if anyone's dealt with dyes before, there's a percentage that you can do your dyes at. 1% being the lightest, 5% being the darkest, like a dark black. And so, and also the amount of times you pass the squeegee, you have to account for that, because if you do it 2 times versus 10 times, it'll make it darker. So working with dyes, you have to test everything, print it down, and I'll put down the color I use and then amount of passes. So a two pass versus a 3 pass, you can kind of tell, like in the camel over there, it's like 2 pass, 4 pass. You can see a little difference in that, but you really just have to. There's so much setup in silk screening versus just going ahead and doing it. But it was fun. And this is also something I did, 10-yard table for my sister and I, with clouds and on cotton. And it was just, I cut out the big clouds out of cardboard, and then I just kind of like drug the can of fabric around and then kind of like made these clouds. And she cut this up, and this will be in our next collection soon. I lost my studio, but I didn't lose my studio. I ended up teaching at California College of the Arts, where I went to school. And so I am able to use their table there, which is great. I don't have to spend money on a table, but it's students. So it's one of those fine balances you have to have. But it's really nice to be back in that studio when you went to undergrad ad. I love it. And this is hand printed fabric we did. It's just coming out right now, which is it's based off my I made a dress for my 10-year anniversary, and this was based off of that. So I made this whole dress and I printed it with silk and stuff. My sister really liked it, so we started making dresses out of it. So I've got, the left is my sister makes these like suspender dresses, and then on the right is the coordinating print, which the hands with lightning bolts coming out of it. And these are scarves that we did too, hand printed, and to go with the collection. And we always try to have like highs and lows. So it's like you've got the dress, but you've also got the scarf or the bag that can go with it. And then also I have a line called Baby Cats of California. And I started this because after the birth of my son, I realized that there's really not that many gender neutral clothes out there that I could buy. Everything, if I had a boy, so everything was like a truck or a dinosaur or this or that. So I wanted to make something that was like gender neutral, fun, exciting things to do. And I also me being in textile design, you know, everyone's telling me what to do. This brand, I was able to do I wanted to do. So, you know, here's some process shots of me. I would make tote bags. And here's my screens, you know, like I engineered the bags so that they're easy to sew, and you can just sew them up and they're different at the same time. I use pigments a lot. Dyes are just a little bit more finicky just because you have to seam set them, and dyes actually don't use as much water. I mean, pigments don't use as much water. So it's like a love-hate. And here I am printing my my cats in pot, which was my first print I did. So you can see you do every other print so that the screen doesn't hit the wet of the orange. So this was me silk screening and passing the squeegee back and forth. On my screens, I was able to get all the screens from Philly U. They were downsizing, so I got 80 screens from them, which was kind of amazing. I dragged them all back. That's how I got the table too, they were downsizing. I got that table. So here's my yardage that I did. I used to screen print everything when I was making baby clothes. I was only making kids clothes up to 2 years old. And then the adults were like, oh, I want the clothes too. So then I started outsourcing it and getting other people to print it, because at the time I now had 2 kids and I just didn't have the time. And if you think about it, a man's extra large sweatshirt, which these were, would take out a yard. So if I'm only printing 1 yard, if I'm only printing 10 yards at a time, and the setup and all this stuff, it was just, it didn't calculate in my mind how that was ever going to happen. I could either be like super low, small, or I could be bigger and outsource it. So here's some of my prints. This is the cat and pot that I did. And this was the cheetah, which was the second print I worked on. And these are all things that I hand printed. This was the catsicle that I worked on as well. And got that idea at Sears. I was like, catsicles. This was a stray cat collaboration that we did with, it was called, Stray Cats. They're in Brooklyn. It's an Instagram, and they wanted to bring more awareness of stray cats and what that means. Like the tipped ear means that they've been spayed and neutered, so you don't have to do it again. And they are really like a cool brand that really tries to bring awareness of them, and they feed cats all over in Brooklyn, and they're just like cool people. So we collaborated together to make this print, and it was fun. And this is parrots. These are based off of my parrots that my mom had when we were growing up. So we had Dudley and Buttercup, which are the two parrots in there. And I just love animals in general, so it was fun to draw them and put them in this print. And then there's the rainbow catsicle print that we do too. It's really fun, and just like I like rainbows, bright colors, sparkly things.
Uh-oh. Did we lose Kat?
Sounds like we did, but hopefully she'll be back soon. Thank you for your patience.
Great. Yeah, well, this is amazing. Thank you, Alicia, for organizing it. If anybody does have questions while we're sort of figuring out this technical difficulty, please go ahead and put them in the chat. And Alicia and I might just pause for a moment to try to kind of figure out what's happening. So
Yeah. Oh, I think we might have lost her. We're afraid we lost you for good.
I know it could have happened. Anyway, perfect timing, because that was my presentation. So.
Oh, okay, great.
it was fantastic.
I know, it worked out. It's like the Zoom gods knew when to stop it.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Kat. I just want to extend my sincerest thank you. And I hope everyone has enjoyed the presentation. I wanted to bring Kat specifically because I think she has such an amazing viewpoint on the breadth of surface design. She's, worked for major corporate brands as well as done collabs, and has her own brand, and has spanned the industry as far as going independent versus corporate. So, and her experience is phenomenal, and her love of textiles definitely comes through. So
yeah,
thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Are there any questions or anything I should?
We do have some questions. So yeah, we'll just kind of go through the chat, and maybe I'll just start at the beginning. Unless Allison, did you want to, I didn't know if you were, I'm just jumping.
No, sorry. I think we can go ahead and just start with the questions that folks had in the chat. And
okay, thank you.
Okay, great. So we've got a first question from Sean. He says, I really enjoy the versatility of your design. I also really enjoy how you enjoy how you enjoy people engaging with your work. My question is, what do you think is the best way for a new entrant or freelance designer to connect with buyers or producers? That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. I think if you're new, the rules have changed now because of COVID. I think Instagram is a good way right now to do it. I know a lot of friends of mine that just do their textile designs on the internet, and on, they have I know blogs aren't really big now, but they put them out there. So as far as connecting to people, I think it's Instagram has been helpful for me, and then also just kind of knowing people in the industry. you know, maybe you get an internship somewhere and then you meet that person and that person moves on and it kind of keeps going that way. But as far as connecting with people, you know, you could also go to studios and try to get your work out that way. Kind of what I did with Anona. There's lots of studios that they need freelancers to work for, and you know, you could do that and sell your designs that way, and then kind of building up that skill and knowledge and people, you know, if that helps.
And I'm just putting in your Instagram handle here into the chat for everyone. And then within her Instagram account, she also lists out her different, I guess, ventures is the word, or brands or collabs, all the things that you do. There's also in her bio, there's additional handles there so you can follow her work.
Yeah. I think, you know, really it's just, you just have to keep making stuff. That's really what it is. It's like you gotta, even if it's something dorky, like you're just doing polka dots, like you guys got to keep producing stuff because your hand gets rusty and you just, you know, things might come out of it later on. So maybe make that polka dot that you didn't think about, but then you incorporate it with something else. Like it all kind of comes together in some way. Yeah.
Great. We have a question from Gigi here. Gigi asks, are you able to separate and hand print your more complicated or nuanced watercolor prints, or do you have to reduce the colors?
It depends on what I'm doing it for. If it's some brands, you don't have to do that. It depends on the printing process. So if it's digital, you don't have to color separate. Versus if they're rotary printing it, then you would have to color separate each one, and then also be mindful of how many screens you can use. So like some brands only let you do 3, some brands let you do 8. So it's really kind of like up to the person that is you're working for. As far as my brand, what I'm doing, I hand printing it is hard to do on my end because you have to have specialty screens that have a high mesh count, and I don't have those. I just have 110s, which are pretty basic. But if you wanted to do like a watercolor screen on my end, that would be hard. Yeah.
Great. Let's see, our next question. Jamila asks, what equipment would you recommend to use for home printing?
Really all you need is a silk screen, a squeegee, and a space. I mean, your space can be a table that is, you know, like it can be just a normal table on horses, you know, like it doesn't have to be anything complicated. I think it's just a matter of like what you want to get out of it. Like if you're trying to print like t-shirts, I use an ironing board sometimes. I put the t-shirt on an ironing board and I print it that way. I mean, you can be inventful. And then when I want to reclaim my screens, I go to the car wash, you know, you can use the car wash pressure sprayers there. Like it's really just thinking about like, you know, for years I didn't have a space or money to do any of this stuff. So you have to kind of think like, how could you do this, you know, in a different way? So, I mean, there's always a way.
I love that car wash. Who would have thought? That's amazing.
Yeah. Car wash out all your stuff. They don't like it. I mean, the people in the cars don't like it because you're taking up their space. But if you go to a place that's not well used, you can reclaim all day. Pop that quarter in.
Another question is, if I wanted to use a personal photo into a print, what would you recommend to best execute that into a print?
Are they silk screening it or are they digitally printing it?
There's no details there. Does someone, is that Jamila?
Oh, digital printing. Oh, Jamila's saying digital printing. If you're digital printing it, then you don't need to do anything because it's digital printing. It's like a printer. So it's just going to print it out just on paper, on fabric versus paper. So you don't need to do anything. That's the beauty about digital printing is it's as is. Now, because it's as is, it also will show as is how much it's crap, how crappy it is or not. So clean that up. Yeah.
Digital printing has come a long way.
Digital printing is amazing. We went to some digital printing factories and it's amazing what they can do. I mean, it's revolutionary.
Yeah,
in
it's
a lot
going
of
to
ways.
take over all the other printing methods when it becomes affordable, I think.
Eventually, I think there's, I mean, rotary printing, you can print, I think it's like 100 yards in 5 minutes, and digital printing is not at that level. So maybe one day they'll be able to go faster, but they have to do 4 passes each time before they digital print something. So it'll take a minute, but it'll happen.
It'll happen eventually. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay, we've got another question here from Bailey. It says, you moved around a lot in industry. Is this just for a change up, or do companies change up designers a lot?
So I moved around because I went to grad school and then came back. That was why I did that. But as far as change up, yeah, they do. It's kind of like I imagine like the new king that comes in and he wants his own people. So you might be out of that. You might not. It happens, but it happens in every company. So I don't think that's weird, but I moved around, certain cities have more industry than others. Like up in Portland, you've got Nike. I think you have Reebok. Is that right? Yeah, Nike, Reebok, Pendleton, and probably some other little tiny brands I don't know. So you've got just a small amount. Now, if you don't get a job in those, then you have to move maybe to another company, maybe down in, New York City has tons of them. So you might go to New York and you could move around there versus like if you go to South Carolina where all the home furnishing is, there's jobs there too. So it's like there are certain cities that have more. Like I know in Georgia, Carter's is there, and I think that's it. So you work for Carter's and that's it. So it's like you move kind of if you have to, or start your own thing like I did.
Yeah. And Reebok is in Boston, but Adidas is.
Oh, okay, my bad.
And there are quite a few companies, and for my students out there, I will include that in the resource sheet for you, just so you have a list of all the Portland-based companies that deal with surface design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Alicia knows.
Let's see, what else do we have? We've got a lot of questions coming here.
Okay.
It looks like the next one, I hope I didn't skip any questions. It looks like Carmen asked, for someone that doesn't have the technical background in textile design, but I'm a graphic designer that does her own patterns in Illustrator, is there a way to get into textiles and get my patterns printed and produced on actual products?
So actually graphic designers and textile designers kind of go back and forth on things. Like there's always designers that work on t-shirt graphics, but also do textile designs. That's what happened at ATHLETA. There was a girl there that worked on graphics, but also textile design. So it's pretty interchangeable. I think, there are a lot of companies, there's a lot of YouTubes that you can do to figure out that stuff. I'm sure Alicia is going to show you how to do stuff. I mean, you're at school, so it's good. There's a lot of resources out there to learn. And if you do know that aspect of computer, then you're probably pretty okay. Those little details like learning screen size and mill capabilities and stuff like that, that will come with your job. So I would not worry about that necessarily. But you're fine if you're a graphic designer. I think you'll be okay. So don't worry.
There's also resources like Spoonflower and Redbubble and places like that. Pattern Bank is another one where you can upload your designs and either have people purchase them or license them that way. It's an easy way to enter the industry.
Yeah, there's a lot of those, and I've noticed a lot more people are doing pre-sale things too. So you buy the thing before, so you don't have to worry about putting all this money out and then doing it. So you could do that somehow. And it's also like I found a place, if you just do research, like there's some digital printers in your area, I'm sure. And if you were like, hey, can I put some fabric in there? They might be okay with it. That's where they are in San Francisco. There's a place called DPI, and I called them up and they were like, yeah, we'll do it. So, I mean, just a little bit of legwork, but I mean, there are places, but Spoonflower and all those places that Alicia said are quite good too. There's places, just got to do the research.
Next question. How does hand printing differ from digital printing in terms of the final look of the textile?
There are things you cannot do in digital printing that you only can do in hand printing. And that's just my eye of it. Digital printing is great for you know, fine details and for little photos and stuff like that. But when you're doing big swaths of color, it doesn't do very well. So for instance, if you were going to do like a white, a big black ground piece with big white polka dots on it, it would see the streak marks on it. So it's not as good, I find, for background colors. So there's like some things that, and also it depends on the mill you're going to and things like that. Like I see some fashion designers that get their stuff digitally printed, and I can see that kind of, you know, that ink line that happens when you're printing on paper. It kind of does that. So I think that there's some issues that will be figured out later on, but hand printing, I love it. I think it has a nice quality to it, but most people don't know the difference. To be honest.
All right, so let's see. Next is, I started investigating textile paint. Are there any other materials you would recommend to try out to create prints? Also, a lot of creations would be done at home since I'm not able to go to university to do screen prints.
Check out Dharma Trading Company. They're based off of in San Rafael in Oakland, like in the Bay Area. They have everything you need. So they have tons of textile paints, the fabric, the clothing, everything. And they're also a good resource too. So check them out. They have great silk dyes that you can look at, or cotton dyes, or whatever fabric you use. And there's different techniques, and like they just kind of spell it out for you. So that's like the best resource, I would say, because they have everything. And there's another place called Rupert Gibbons and Spider. I think they're still around, but they also have good stuff too. But Dharma's just like the best, I think. I think you just go there.
Yeah, not only can you cut everything, but they'll tell you how to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And they love tie-dye, so they'll show you all about it.
What was the name again?
I'll put it in the
Yes,
Oh, okay.
Dharma Trading Company, DHARMA Trading Company. But great resource. Like I get all my paints there. I get my fabrics there. You can get dyeable fabric, clothing already made. Like if you want to make a sweatshirt, and they got it all. So it's like, that's the place to go.
You can get any kind of synthetic or natural dye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really
Just put the link in the chat for for that and some digital fabric printers for folks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Allison.
Yeah, thank you.
What do we have next? We've got, what's been some of the biggest challenges in creating prints when working with clients?
You know, some people just are, some people are easy to work with and some people aren't. And it's like, you have to, you know, I think it's like you give them 3 options and then you kind of like work with them back and forth. And some, I think really it's like with anything, it's creating limits when you first start, saying like, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to give you 3 changes. And then after this, I'm going to charge you more and more and more after that. So it's really just like posing limits and making sure that everything's in a contract, even if it's written down on your piece of paper thing. It's just going to help the client process work a little easier, because things can go wrong, even with friends. But I think it's just, I've had good times and I've had bad times.
Great. Let's see. Next question is, have you built a table with rails for printing continuous patterns large scale?
Yeah, I have actually. I made it out of wood, and I've also done it a dorky way where it's just table saws, and kind of doing it that way. But I have made them out of wood, and I've gotten because when you print, you have to have it's wood, and then you put I can't talk, felt on top of it, and then canvas on top of that, and you staple it all down, and you have your rail. And I've made stops too, so like I've, you know, like you need stops to make sure you know where registration is. So there is I've done that. Yeah, I mean it's easy because it's a table, but it's not easy because it has to be level. But I think if you have a level floor and you have the space, you're good to go.
Great. Let's see, just a couple more questions. It looks like we are kind of going over time, so don't want to take everyone's day, but these are all great questions, so get through as many as
Thank
you
you.
can.
And feel free to, if you want to give them my email address, you can, and that I can answer questions more if that's something that people want to
Oh,
ask.
that's great.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Very nice. Thanks. Okay, so let's see. Wait, did I already read this one? No. I'm into creating prints on Illustrator and would love to see my work on many different textiles. What would you suggest industry-wise to get my prints out there or recognized for career goals? How do I best execute a way to sell my prints from Illustrator?
I don't think Illustrator is your issue. Like, as far as like, I know some people that work in textile industry that do only illustrators. I think it's that game of finding notoriety and getting out there. I mean, there's lots of, especially if you're in school, you have internships you can get into. You have like scholarships you can join. There's like contests you can do. So I think getting yourself out there in that way is one way to start while you're in school. And then when you get out of school, you just have to hustle, and you're your own PR. So you have to kind of get out there and reach out to, like one of my students at school, she reached out to a swimwear company and was like, hey, I really like what you do. I'm a textile designer. How about it? And she actually ended up talking to the owner of the company and started working with her to create some prints. So, I mean, it can be as simple as that. I don't think that Gucci is going to answer your text message that you sent to them, but I think if you reached out to brands that you thought were really cool and be like, hey, I'm this person and I like what you do, and maybe we can I can do some prints for you. Like, it can be as innocent as that. I don't find that there's any way that you be with Instagram and with all these things, like reaching out to people, I don't think is unheard of. And I think it's great to do.
Great. Okay. Next question. Any recommendations for printing service that make wall-mounted canvases?
Say again? Wall-mounted canvases?
Yeah.
I think Spoonflower does that. I think they print on canvas.
Too.
Allison is saying yes.
I don't know if they will do the mounting for you, but
no, they won't do the mounting for you, but yeah, you can print on canvas and then mount it. So you just have to have the dimensions and print it out to the dimensions that you want.
And they have heavy-duty canvas. So yeah.
There's also there's a company called Zoo Inc. in San Francisco, and they will hand print things for you as well. They have no minimums, which is great, but they will charge you per screen per color, so it can be costly if you're doing an 8-color screen. But that's a great resource, and they'll hand print it for you. I mean, it'd be better if you're doing production versus you doing like one canvas, but Zoo Inc., like the Zoo Inc., INK. I think Allison's going to put in the chat.
Yep.
Oh, great.
Allison's on it.
Okay, one last question. We are so over time, so thanks for your patience. Could you explain more about engineered printing and surface printing? So engineered prints, basically, I think.
Engineered prints. That's maybe Alicia. Alicia, you got to show them that. No, I'm just kidding.
Didn't get there.
I know, right?
We talked about it in the beginning. I don't know if anyone remembers from my class, but go ahead if you want to take a stab.
I'll try to explain without it. I usually have like a whole thing myself that I teach with it. But engineered prints are basically engineered to whatever form you're going to put it on. So if you're making a dress and you want the polka dots that are small at the top to get to the bottom be bigger, it's just a way of engineering the print so that it works within the garment or the thing you're doing. So like if you're doing a bed sheet and you want the mountainscape to be on the bottom, but then the stars on the top, it's just a matter of like knowing the screen dimensions that you're able to work with, then knowing if you're working in a company, how many colors and what their screen mill capabilities are, because some mills can only print up to this much time, this much width, and only can do this much. So it's really figuring out those things with the project. So if I was with you and you're like, I'm gonna engineer print, I'd be like, first question would be like, what are you trying to do with it? Is it going to be on a shirt? Is it going to be on a dress? Like, and then you would measure out that stuff and you would print it based off of what you had. So if you had a screen that was big enough to figure out that, you could do it that way too. So it's a kind of like, it's a little bit of a math thing, but not really. But it's just really knowing what you're trying to do and then making it work.
It's also called a placed print. Sometimes that just helps me understand it. It's placed exactly where you want it on a garment.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's good.
That's how I do it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that was our last question. So we should go ahead and wrap up because we've gone way over. But thank you all for being here and your patience. And thank you, Kat, for everything.
Yeah, I just
the journey. Oh
yeah, I just want to also remind people that this conversation and also all the links that that we talked about and discussed in this conversation will be available on the event archive. So people can reference that if they can't sort of didn't get everything down in the chat. So and then we are just in a few minutes going to go ahead and pause the recording or stop the recording and have that sort of like awkward 5-minute people who want to unmute themselves and say hi or whatnot, post artist talk sort of session. So I just wanted to let you know that was going to be happening for anybody who just wanted to ask a quick question or say hi. So thank you so much for joining us today, though, and thank you so much for Alicia for facilitating this as well. So one of the things I really love about Kat's process is that that you very much have established yourself and your aesthetic as an independent artist, and therefore you have become really marketable in all of these different places and contexts, but still sort of true to your own work. And so that's really lovely to see. So great. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop that recording, and we'll just be here in this room for a few more minutes if you want to say hi. So thank you so much, Kat.
Yeah, thank you everybody for coming. Sorry about all the chaos. We made it through.
Thank you.